Welcome back. Let's talk about data types. We said that variables are the little compartments in a computer's memory to store data, different types of data, little pieces of data. These compartments, so we store like the first name of somebody or a quantity or a PIN number or the amount that we want to withdraw in our infamous ATM example there. So these are variables. And today we talk about that we have different data types, different types of data that we want to store in these variables. And usually, depending on the programming language, but usually we want to differentiate between different types of data. What do I mean by different types of data? Well, think about it that way. If you're entering a numerical value, like the quantity of the item that you purchase on Amazon, or your age somewhere, right? You enter your age, or an account number that's just digits. These are all examples for numerical data. Maybe the sum that you need to pay to your cashier on the supermarket checkout, right? These are all numerical kinds of data, and we want to store them in numerical data types. So usually when we are declaring a variable, when we are telling the computer, hey, I want to store a value under a certain name, so let's call it, I don't know, age or user age, we need to tell the computer, okay, this is the variable user age, so computer, reserve in your memory a little place called user age, where we want to store data. But usually we need to add there, and it's going to be of type numerical, right? Or whole numbers, integer numbers even. So usually when we are using variables, we need to declare to the computer in our program, hey, we want to use a variable. We want to give it a name, user age, for example. And we need to tell the computer, okay, and the user age variable will be of type integer numbers. And that way, the computer can check when it's executing our program that actually only numbers, numerical values, are going to be stored in that variable here, in our variable user age. And it wouldn't allow us to put something like Tom into the variable user age, because user age is supposed to be a numerical integer variable, okay? So that's one type of variable of data types that we have, numerical data types. And there's different numerical data types for whole numbers like integers, or for floating point numbers with a decimal separated there with a point or a comma, depending on where you live in the world. But that's not important for us right now. The important thing is, okay, there are numerical data types. And if we want to calculate in our program, let's say we want to, I don't know, calculate the number of days in your age. So I have my age, let's say 30, to make it easier to in the example. I store my age, 30 years, in an integer variable, user age. And then I want to multiply that by 365 to get the number of days of that age. And yes, it's simplified because we skip the leap years here. But yeah, we want to simplify things. So if I want to calculate that from the variable my age, I need to store the value in a numerical data type, in a whole number. Otherwise, I can't really calculate with that. So it's important to declare in our computer program, this variable, my age, is going to be of type whole numbers, integer. Okay? What else is there? What other data types are there? Well, we've got all kinds of text that we want to store, like the user's age. And depending on the programming language and the system that you're using, there are also different types, but usually we call them strings. If you ever read string somewhere in documentation, or if you hear somebody talking about strings in their computer programs, they're talking about text variables. Data type string means I'm able to store text, alphanumerical text, in that variable. And depending on, well, how big the memory is, you can store just a word there, or even, I don't know, a whole novel in a single variable. Question whether that makes sense, but in principle, it's the same, right? It's a collection of alphanumerical characters, letters, and numbers there. And we could still store a number in a string variable. It's just that we can't really calculate anything with it, because for the computer, it's just text. Okay, so it's important for us to realize there's different data types that we can use when we are using variables. And the main separation that I want you to understand is the difference between numerical data types that we can use to calculate stuff with and text data types. And there's a third data type, principal data type, that I want to talk to you about, and that's called a Boolean. And that can only store one of two values, true or false, or yes or no, or 0 or 1. But I wouldn't use 0 or 1 because that sort of gives the impression that it's a numerical data type, which is not true. And this Boolean type, this is something true or false. This is the only thing that you can store there. Like if you, I don't know, create a system to, let's stick to the ATM example. If we say that we want to store with a user's account whether the account is allowed to withdraw cash, yes or no, right? We could store this information. Is it allowed to withdraw cash, yes or no, in a Boolean variable type. Otherwise, there's no in between. You can't say maybe. Everything where you have a clear distinction between two values, yes or no, true or false, you can use a Boolean data type there. Okay, so again, I would like to invite you to look around in your day-to-day life to whenever you're interacting with some kind of computer system, some kind of electronic system, and you're recognizing, hey, I'm entering some data there. Think about what kind of data are you entering there? Is it a text? Is it a numerical data type? Also when you're getting something out there, what's the type of output that you're getting? And I realized that sometimes, especially with complicated apps on your smartphone, it's maybe a little bit difficult sometimes to realize, well, what's the data type of an image that I post on Instagram, for example. But don't worry about that. Just stick to more basic stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm entering a phone number, or I'm entering an email address, or entering age or a quantity of something in my next shopping cart when I'm ordering something on Amazon. What kind of data types am I using here, and what would be the variable name, to get back to a previous episode, what could be the variable name and the data type I could be using to store that kind of data?